Learning Unplugged, Learning Unplugged, Learning Unplugged, Learning Unplugged. Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Learning Unplugged. My name's Lucy, and this is Paula. And today we're here to talk about mental health in teenagers and how education kind of has a role in that. So, welcome, Paula. Would you like to kind of start introducing yourself?
Hi, Lucy. Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to come on. My name is Paula Power. I run a business called My White Dog, which is all around positive interventions for mental health. I've been running the business now since 2018.
Wow, I mean, how's that kind of going? Like, how did you kind of get into that?
So initially, I've worked in education for quite a few years, and when I was and worked with young people quite a lot as well through doing outdoor development training in wild country in Africa and Asia and places like that. And mentoring. But the mental health first aid came about from actually my own personal experience of having a sibling who experienced challenges when they were growing up. And none of us really understood in the 80s and 90s about how to support somebody that may be experiencing challenges. It was very much a sort of language around just get on with it. If you keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about type sort of language. It was quite stigmatizing, but we didn't understand it. I thought, well, when I saw mental health first aid, I thought that's really interesting to sort of get a new perspective on awareness around mental health. So I decided to do the training, which was in 2018. And I haven't stopped training. So I did it for myself personally, but obviously it's gone on to, I've now trained over 1,000 people in business, educators around mental health awareness so that they can also come away with some, hopefully, sort of light bulb moments that can really help their own personal development and mental health. So
I feel like in the past couple of years, but obviously kind of since you've started this as well, that mental health is such an important part of kind of our daily lives, and that has kind of increased in the last couple of years, like as you were saying, the awareness of that. So I definitely kind of think that is something that is so key in society at the moment. So yeah, so kind of how do you think kind of mental health can be kind of talked about and kind of how people can kind of discuss it in daily lives?
that's a really good question. I think it's about just not, it's about recognizing that the stigma that goes alongside it. So I think it's historically we have this relationship with mental health being really negative. And, when you think about the film Psycho, for example, people would automatically associate with somebody that is going to be harm to other people. But actually, generally, people are more harm to themselves. And I think it's about recognizing that having awareness of mental health and that it forms part of our overall selves, our physical, emotional, and mental health is all part and parcel of who we are. And it can impact us, it's interlinked, and it can impact us how we think, feel, and behave. Now, to be able to have conversations around mental health, I think it's just that awareness and actually not being afraid to have those conversations and recognize, and then therefore we can stop the stigma and discrimination that exists around it, which makes it more of an equal societal perspective as well, and culturally more a kinder space, I think, as well. And that can come from things like just emotional awareness. So understanding how you think, feel, and behave is a really good starting point. Emotional literacy. So how do you feel right now? Now that would have been such not a conversation to have when I was growing up. It was, oh, we don't talk about how our feelings. We don't have those conversations. It's all just get on with it. So, but it's massive because once we start to unravel that some of the things about how we feel, it can also impact and make us more aware of how we think and behave. And so, if we recognize in other people that there's a change, for example, with your teenager, if you recognize that there's some sort of emotional change or physical change, behavioral change, then that's a really good opportunity to just say, well, is everything okay right now? Nothing more than that. It's just checking in to sort of see, I notice something different. There's a change in you. Is there anything that you want to talk about, or is there anything that I can help you with? or etc., etc. So it's about just checking in, and that on its own can be enough for somebody. Just leaving them with that thought of somebody actually thinking about me, cares about me. Maybe there is something that I'm showing signs of, you know. So yes, there's a really good opportunity to, and there's lots of opportunity to talk about mental health, peer to peer, parent to child, teacher, tutors, you know, all of those things are great opportunities to have those conversations. And actually, even if it's collective peer-to-peer support as well, I know there's quite a lot of other peer-to-peer support projects that are happening now, which are phenomenal, really, that can really help to raise that awareness, emotional awareness around mental health. So that's quite a long answer to your question. I could go on, but
Yeah, but like kind of how you were saying there about the awareness, and that obviously has a direct kind of correlation to recognizing behavior change in your peers, families, teachers, whoever it is, kind of that has a direct correlation between the two. How kind of important do you think that is kind of to raise the awareness of mental health itself, but also kind of the recognizing the signs, of like how you could support someone?
Yeah, really important actually, because it can make a massive difference. If we leave, it's a bit like when you you have an open wound on your leg, for example. If you leave that open, festering, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. You know, without the right treatment, it's going to get worse. And exactly the same thing applies with mental health. So if you have some sort of challenge, peer challenge, exam pressure at school as a teenager, or anything and hormonal changes, I mean, that's a massive one as well, isn't it? It's some of those things can impact our mental health, right? So and we can mask it quite well if we're afraid to open about talking about it. So I think it's really important to, but these signs will come out somehow, you know. Somebody that's maybe more talkative will be more less talkative, or and vice versa, or perhaps they're not performing as well as they normally do, or perhaps they're, you know, some changes that you recognize, that could be the first indicator that something's not right. So actually, by raising awareness around some of those things, can make a massive difference. And people will present different challenges in different ways. So some of us may show signs physically, so stomach aches or headaches, or through not sleeping very well, or, you know, those sorts of things. I think they can present themselves. We can see some of those things through behaviours as well. I think more so, where we can start stepping in and asking, checking in with our peers and our students. So yeah, there's lots of ways, but I think if you start seeing a change with your teenager, then that's a great opportunity to sort of check in to see everything's all right, and what are the sort of signs that you're experiencing. Have you felt like this before? What happened before? Did you get any help before? Who did you speak to? What helps you? What do you need right now? And that can change, can't it, depending on what's going on for us. But
I think it's so, mental health isn't just black and white. There's such a kind of scale, from different needs, and kind of how people would like support might be totally different to how someone else can. So like, how do you think, kind of bringing it back to like education wise, how do you think kind of schools can kind of deal with that and kind of help their students, support them in the best way possible?
yeah, so I guess I know that there are opportunities within school settings to provide that support. If we were to look at, for example, sixth formers, for example, you know, years 12 and 13, that they could be really good examples of how to support younger pupils in years 7 and 8, for example, 7, 8, 9. And that could be part of the curriculum in terms of how can you raising awareness and creating more collaborative, supportive classrooms, you know, because I think feeling psychologically safe is sort of the fundamental thing, really, for people, for students, and all of us, really, to feel comfortable to talk about any challenges. And I think that's probably the sort of fundamental piece, really. How can you create a psychologically safe environment where people feel comfortable to talk about some of the challenges that they're having, and not going under the radar, because I know that some students are quite outspoken, some of them are introverts. How do and there's a massive, it's diverse, and it's about how, and neurodiversity as well. I mean, how can we start to recognize some of that things to make it more inclusive? And it needs to be dedicated as part of I think it should be part of the curriculum, but of course it's not feasible. Seen some really effective work being done in some schools where they do, and I think I mentioned before about that peer support approach, because some students may not feel comfortable to talk to other teachers. I mean, that's fundamental, having a good relationship. Who do you have a good relationship with? Because not all of them are going to speak to the same person. So it's about having a really inclusive, equal space. But it's got to start at the top, and it's got to be a cultural change, I think.
Is this kind of something that you're doing a master's at the moment in positive psychology? So is this kind of something that you're seeing through that? Is this kind of, what are you kind of researching for that?
This thing that's come up recently is around the for me through this research is around pain, physical pain through isolation, loneliness, and how positive relationships can really impact that. And it is about creating a really safe environment as well, again, so that people do feel supported. The master's is around positive psychology and coaching psychology, so I am coaching with the coaching philosophy, coaching psychology, around positive psychology, and which is all about thriving rather than surviving. It's all about finding really good strategies that can really enhance. But it's not all positive. It's realistic. It's a very realistic and active approach to creating strong relationships, positive relationships, in communities, in business, and in education settings. And of course, that's where my real passion is. So, and the way I'm doing sort of approaching that at the moment is through coaching. So that's the first piece for me. So coaching parents and young people towards positive relationships.
I feel like it's so key kind of in society, is the kind of the positive relationships that you build with people, because they will always be there for you, kind of thing, whether that be literally your community or kind of your closer, more immediate family and friends kind of thing. When you're building those relationships, that is instrumental. I like what you said there about surviving, not thriving, not surviving, and kind of that relationships that you build with those people I think is very fundamental to that.
Absolutely, but it has to start at the top. I think, if we're talking about school environments or businesses, it's got to start at the top, and there's so many passionate educators and members of community that want to make a difference, but it's lost if it's not supported by the bigger picture. So
how do you kind of like go into that then? Like, how can education kind of help people who are going through mental health challenges? Can schools, obviously we kind of spoken about how they can support, but how do you think that education as a whole can kind of have that influence on them?
Yeah, and actually, and again, it goes back to that culture, doesn't it? Creating a space where they feel they're going to be heard, they're going to be supported, they can grow and develop. And it has changed so significantly since COVID, isn't it? And I think it's about having a more inclusive space where parents are involved more, where the pupils are involved more, and how they do that. Because education can be really positive. It can really drive our students, towards, in terms of motivation. And it's really important to have that really strong peer relationships as well to sort of develop. So, but I think things like there are some amazing support available. It's just that we don't always know where to start. And we're currently running a course that really supports working parents. So it's around youth mental health awareness, so for parents. So how can you, first of all, it's about the sort of is a real foundation of mental health. So what is mental health and the difference between that and mental illness, and how can we step in as parents to support our young people, and how can we, because our kids might not necessarily always want to talk to our parents, so it's like having a new approach, and how they can support, recognizing the signs to be able to step in and knowing where to go if it's out of their depth, or and getting that support to go forward so that it doesn't get to a crisis. So we're running a course that's really helpful for that. It's about so giving the parents the confidence to step in and to know how to support their young people, but also it starts with them as parents as well. So because if they're in a really good place, they've got more capacity to support their young people, and it really helps. So that's that piece as well. And then also there's a big coaching, group coaching experience, but also one-to-one coaching that we're offering that just gives it an opportunity to support them and their young people in education.
That's amazing. So can you just like tell us a little bit more kind of what people can find from your company on your website, what you
Yeah.
offer?
Yeah, so the at the moment we're running a this particular course is it's a day course. It's a half day of youth mental health awareness, really interactive, a really safe space. It's a combination of video and conversation, and obviously education piece as well is all researched and signed off by Public Health England, for example. So it's regulated, and also the coaching opportunity at the end. So there's an awareness piece, and then there's all about what do we do now? How do we really sort of dig a bit deeper into this if you want to explore it in terms of support? So it really is a very supportive, inclusive, engaging experience for the day, which is open to all parents. And there's on my website, which is mywhitedog.com, does offer other courses around mental health awareness, but that one in particular I think is really good for parents to support their young people in a school education, but it's also for educators as well. So that's something that we really want to push this year, because it's so many people have fed back in terms of the impact it's had on their own well-being. So we really want to try and push that this year. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to just share that. But
No, that sounds amazing. Kind of the work that you're doing sounds like you're obviously supporting a lot of families that kind of need that help and that kind of just shoulder to lean on kind of when they are kind of going through those challenges. So no, that sounds amazing. And if you're wondering about Paula's website, we're going to link it at the end of the video. So just to kind of finish up on our podcast here, I've just got my final question. It's kind of your top tip, your final message that the viewers can take away from this podcast.
so one of the most powerful things that I have learnt through my training and as an educator and as a coach and trainer is being able to listen without judgment is one of the most key things you can do as a parent to support your young people, especially if they are experiencing challenging where it's quite emotional, where the emotional brain is detached from the logical brain, so it's quite chaotic. Might seem a bit chaotic, and we tend to react as parents. And what I'm going to say to you is, if you can, just breathe, sit back and just listen without judgment as long as you can. The power of that is phenomenal, because it builds trust and it really helps to strengthen that relationship. So yeah, I'm going to invite you to do that. If you get an opportunity to just practice listening without judgment, it's really, really good.
I think that's amazing. I think that's a perfect way to end this podcast. So thank you very much for joining us, Paula, and thank you for watching. And we'll see you on the next episode of Learning Unplugged. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Learning Unplugged, Learning Unplugged, Learning Unplugged, Learning Unplugged.